It's just so easy to destroy your credibility with customers today. They are being inundated with so much marketing fluff around AI. There's buzzwords firing at them all the time that they're really just desperate to engage with people that actually know how this stuff works.
Welcome, my lovely people, to yet another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends Podcast. Today, we're talking about something every sales leader is feeling right now, which is how do you keep your teams relevant when the market is moving faster than they can learn? My guest, Phil Manez, is the VP of Go-to-Market Execution at Vast Data, and he sits right in the middle of that challenge. He's connecting product, enablement, engineering, marketing, competitive intelligence, all to make sure sellers can engage the right people with the right message at the right level. What I find fascinating about Phil's work is the pace, that crazy pace. AI is shifting weekly. Customer expectations are shifting, of course, with it. And sellers need constant real-time information to stay credible, which is all of it not a once-a-quarter exercise. We're going to talk about what continuous enablement actually looks like, how you help sellers move beyond features, how you coach them to engage different personas, and how you keep a team sharp when the industry has no steady ground under it. If you lead a sales team in a fast-changing environment, this episode will hit home for you. Phil, welcome to the B2B Sales Trends Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's put some early context and set the scene a little bit here. You operate in a part of the industry where products, markets, and customer expectations all move extremely fast and all at once. Before we dive deeper into this topic, give us a short version of your role today and what go-to-market execution looks like inside of Vast.
So my role really boils down to giving our sellers confidence and repeatability in a rapidly expanding organization with a rapidly evolving product in a rapidly evolving market. So go-to-market execution at Vast is really about precision. So we want to focus exclusively on accounts where our product is going to bring business-changing value. We're going to identify the specific use cases where we can deliver that impact for the given type of account. We need to position that value to the appropriate personas that can make those decisions. And then finally, it's about bringing in the right partners to deliver that complete outcome that the customer is looking for. And ultimately, my job is making sure that our reps have the tools to navigate all those different conversations along the way so we can win and win really quickly and continue to evolve and grow in these accounts.
Thank you for that introduction, Phil. Great setting the scene. So why is this topic important? That's interesting, right? Confidence, precision, different tools, conversations, outcomes. AI is evolving at a pace the industry has never really experienced. Now, what does that mean for sellers? It really means that it's tough as the ground is shifting at any old time, right? When you look at that market right now, what makes enablement and message discipline in a way such an urgent challenge?
It's just so easy to destroy your credibility with customers today. They are being inundated with so much marketing fluff around AI. There's buzzwords firing at them all the time that they're really just desperate to engage with people that actually know how this stuff works, that know how to solve the problems that they're having. And when you come in with outdated information, you're telling the customer they have problems they don't even have, then immediately you've lost your credibility. And if you can establish that credibility above and beyond what you're selling, you're already separating yourselves from 90% of the sales community or more, because they know that you're actually in the ship with them and helping them get to their goals.
And you you touched on it. Deals often hinge less on the tech itself and much more on whether teams can keep up with the evolution happening in a way around them, right? Can you take us into a moment or a real life situation where the speed of change created real pressure for your sellers in your organization? What was one of those
Absolutely. I
moments?
think our superpower at Vast might be that we've never really known normalcy. We've sold the product, 1 year before COVID. We've experienced insane growth. AI evolved. So we've never really lived in normal times. So I think for us, we're more comfortable in the chaos. But I think if you look for a specific example, it's really the introduction of the neo cloud market. I can never remember a market showing up so quickly with so much money behind it and creating such an opportunity that had to be captured so quickly. So we had to learn to identify these accounts, qualify them, how they were going to use our product changes, right? Positioning our value, building out a partner ecosystem to go at these accounts, I think literally in a matter of weeks. And that capturing that market, right, allowed us to become really a powerhouse in the AI space, but it also opened our eyes to what go-to-market execution and enablement would look like in AI going forward. Like that change was the first. We know it's not going to be the last in any way, shape, or form. And obviously so much has changed even since then.
Right, right. Oh, and it constantly is and continues to, right? Hey, a quick pause here, because if you're leading a sales team right now, you will want to hear this. We've just released our new report, the 26 Sales Trends for 2026. It's pulled from the conversations we've had with senior leaders on this very podcast. The themes, the shifts, and the realities shaping how customers buy and how teams need to sell in the new year. It's practical, it's concise, and it's built to help you make better decisions faster. You can download it for free at the link in this description box or at globalperformancegroup.com. Now, let's get back to the conversation. It's a really good one. Let's talk a little bit about a playbook, or your playbook, shall I say, as your world in a way requires sort of stitching together product marketing, competitive intel, engineering, the field, and the technical teams in a way. What is your framework that you use to turn all of that complexity into something a seller can actually act on and do?
Yeah, I try to look at it like a 3-step process. So step 1 for me, I consider it like the distillation process. So how do I take these complicated concepts, whether it's a use case or an architectural concept, and really boil it down to the lowest common denominator that the rep's going to be able to understand, that the customer is going to think is impactful. You've got to distill out the noise, the buzzwords, and bring these things down to their simplest forms that are still obviously powerful.
Right.
Then the next step is, how do we contextualize that? So how do we add context? Who's going to care about this? What will it mean for competition? What use cases, verticals, and all those different pieces to where this matters. And then the final piece is around operationalizing it, which is delivering everything in very consumable doses. So when I think about delivering enablement, my gold standard, 5 minutes. I want to keep everything around 5 minutes. I want to keep virtually everything under 10 minutes. And then if I'm going to do something longer, or we're going to build something longer as an organization, we're going to tag in product marketing. That has to be foundational skills. So things that we're going to need to build on top of. Not everything can be learned in 5 minutes.
Right.
So it's taking those balance between when do we need to build foundational skills and then how do we build on top of them.
So share with us a real example on this, where sort of, your strategy and your framework of effective enablement really has changed the direction of an opportunity. What's one of those moments?
So I can think of a particular circumstance. We had a rep working an opportunity with a media account, and we were really I think, still in the driver's seat of this opportunity, but you could feel that the customer was comparing us to a lot of products, more in the storage space, that did such a small piece of what Vast could do. And through enablement, the rep was able to pivot the conversation to how does Vast become your AI platform for video analytics? And we were able to show the rep the outcome, how Vast enabled that outcome, and how that positioning separated us from the competition. And if you can do all three of those things,
Nice,
you
right.
can turn virtually any rep into an outcome-based seller. And at that point, it's not whether Vast, it's how do we build on top of Vast to maximize the value. And when you're in that conversation, it's just such a better experience for the customer. And obviously, it's a better experience for Vast, and it's a terrible experience for the rest of our competition.
So let's break that a little bit further down and make it a little bit more actionable for our listeners here. A lot of organizations are relying, or still relying, should I say, on events, these big training moments instead of this continuous enablement. It's a lot of the time of, what is it that you have to do versus how. If a sales leader who's listening to this wants to shift towards shorter real-time learning this quarter, let's say, where should they start, and what's the pitfall that sort of derails people early in that process?
I think the easiest thing to do is take your regular weekly or bi-weekly call and carve out 5 minutes dedicated to enablement. Usually you have forecasts, you might have some kind of updates from organizations that you guys work with, but making 5 minutes around fundamental enablement. And I think the pitfall there is, one, has to be non-negotiable. So as you get towards the last month of the quarter, you can't punt enablement until next month. You have to keep consistent with it. And more, you have to have a strategy for what that's going to be. If you go to every week and say, what are we going to talk about for enablement this week? It's going to feel very scattered. The planning becomes more important when you chunk it up, because you have to build, a straight line made of dots. But the value of chunking it up is you get much better retention from your team because it's more consumable, and you have more ability to adapt. So things start to change. You can tweak along the way, as opposed to trying to build these monolithic training programs that are static and oftentimes out of date before the field even sees them for the first time.
Right. How do you handle disengaged people?
So I think the other aspect is, and this is something that we did at Vast a little bit differently, is you have to think about the delivery of enablement as much as you would think about the delivery of a sales call. So when I think about delivering enablement, I'm thinking about selling the field on why they should care about this as much as I would win a deal. So I've been customer facing for most of my career, a lot of partner facing as well, and thinking about enablement resources not as someone who's not designed to inspire and motivate people. I think you have to think about the resources that you're in front of. So me, I take it as this is my sales call every week to the field team.
Nice. I like that angle of that. That's cool. These days people have to engage with different personas, right? Different stakeholders. In your experience, what would you say is that one behavior that helps sellers to sort of elevate that conversation across these different personas, and one behavior that keeps them stuck in that sort of situation?
I think it's really a mentality of becoming the connective tissue between these different groups in an organization. I think it's easy to not realize that organizations, they have silos, they have fragmented groups. The individuals within that customer, they feel that too, right? A lot of times there are barriers and they wish they could work more closely together. If you think about your opportunity to bring those groups more closely together, then you're building something very different than, I think, the pitfall is looking at this as like a checklist. Oh, I got to get to this guy, got to get to this person, got to get to this person. And you're not thinking about getting this whole group of people to move in the same direction. That's what you really need to do to be successful, is get them moving together. And there's an opportunity to help them work better together as opposed to trying to just walk through these different groups and check the box.
And your world is moving into databases, operating systems, and AI and so forth. And sellers' behaviors and identity really has to evolve with it, right? And you mentioned earlier, it's a super fast-paced environment. What belief does a seller need to let go of in order to operate effectively in that fast-paced sort of environment?
I think you have to let go of the traditional categories that we used to sell into. Those are not going to be relevant in the future. So much of what we did in the past is just not going to work in the AI era. So trying to force the way that you sell to line up with these traditional categories of products being storage, data, becoming an operating system, it's understanding that our product, to be its maximum effectiveness, is not going to be viewed as something that is helpful in each category. It's something that's viewed as standalone. And we have to challenge these customers to think about the way they operate differently, knowing that it's required for them to be successful in this new era with AI.
And when you watch these, these reps grow, what are the signals that tell you someone has sort of made that shift from, traditionally pitching tech to really what you referred to earlier, shaping these business outcomes? What do you see?
Yeah, I think for me, I love to look at the questions that people ask. Right? I do it, by the way, when I'm interviewing someone. I love when they have a lot of questions. So we can learn so much from the questions that people have. So if a rep is asking questions, how do I compete with this point product, right, that does a very small piece of what VAST does? We're not in a great situation in that opportunity. Right. If the rep is coming with questions on how can I create a new deal structure that's going to work with this customer's business model, now we know we're having a different type of conversation in the account, and we're engaging and positioning ourselves appropriately.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's also a lot about learning through this process, right? If the environment is constantly changing, the needs are changing, the outcomes that we can affect are changing. There is a lot of value in learning from your current situations, right? Not just the wins and losses, but from active campaigns. What does good inspection look like when everything is, still in motion and the team needs real-time feedback really to adjust what they're doing? What does good inspection look like for you?
Yeah, so for us, we like to think about inspection as bi-directional. So on one hand, we're looking at, are you in the right use cases? Are you working with the right personas? Do we have the right, technical validation and the right information that a deal is shaping up here? But equally or more importantly, we are looking to learn from these different conversations. Is there a new use case that we're seeing customers take advantage of, a new challenge that customers found, a new tool that is enabling their success? Because we can't let these really valuable nuggets of information kind of die on the vine with a single rep. We need to capture all of that information and really bring it into the collective awareness that we have of what's going on in the market. So it's working with reps in these opportunities, not just to make sure we're inspecting them, that they're doing the right things to win the campaign, but that we are learning from everything that we can as quickly as possible and integrating that knowledge and learning into our entire organization.
Yeah. And I know you guys are, heavily involved and lean heavily in a way on bringing in executive resources to support sellers, for example. How do you decide when to deploy those resources, and how do you measure whether that support is actually helping the deal?
Yeah, we really look at a few things. One is account prioritization. So I mentioned we're laser focused on the right account.
Right.
There are certain accounts that we know we can help them in such a big way that we might bring an executive in very early in that conversation.
Right.
We're also looking at the persona, right? What is the personality, the role of that person? Is there certain subject matter expertise? So we're looking at all of these things. We love to create peer-to-peer relationships. So executive to executive, engineer to engineer.
Right.
And then I think if you want to look at when it's really working, it's how is the customer investing back in Vast? So as a great example, if we know that a customer, their product team is spending a lot of time with our R&D team, they're making a real investment. Those engineering teams are working together. It's not just a initial meeting. Oh, I'd like you to meet our VP of engineering. Are those engineering meetings happening? And a lot of times the reps might or shouldn't even be in those conversations. Now we know we're not selling something to them. We're building something together. And that's the position that we always want to be in.
Let's talk a little bit about the culture internally, those leadership behaviors that you living and exercising in front of your people at Vast. I know you're sitting, at the center of marketing, product engineering in the field and so forth, and sort of enabling those different functions. What's something your team sees behind the scenes that most people never realize, but is really important and really essential to keeping the organization aligned in this super fast moving industry? What are these things that the people see and never realize?
Yeah. Something around Vast culture is we like to explore things a little bit more with a scientific process. So in the world today, you have to run what you would look at as like an experiment. So we think there's something here. Let's run an experiment. And I think the most important thing is to realize this experiment is not a good idea and punt on it, and punt quickly. There's just not enough time in the world to spend time on things that are not going to work or just not going to have the right ROI, right? Is there a better way to spend our time?
Right.
So if you realize there's a better way to spend your time, everyone has to be on the same page. We all punt and let it go. And that's so valuable to capturing the next opportunity, the experiment that's turning into something very valuable. That Neo Cloud opportunity we were able to capture.
Right. Let's do a quick lightning audit here. We always use a start, stop, and keep sort of piece to share with our leaders listening today. What would you say is one behavior to stop, one to start, and one to double down on or keep? If those leaders want to keep their teams relevant as an industry accelerates, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think stop thinking about strategy planning and enablement as something that you do annually or even biannually. Can't have those big chunks, has to become continuous. You really need to start getting more aggressive at letting go of things that are not working. If there's something that you're doing that doesn't feel like it's valuable, have to let it go faster than we used to.
Right.
And then I think to double down, it is doubling down on your personal enablement. There is not enough enablement that a company can do for you in this era to continue to build that credibility with customers. So I think leaders need to show they're investing as much in their own development as they expect their people to.
Are you up for a quick fire round?
Fire at me.
Give me one book every modern go-to-market leader should read.
I'm going to go old school. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think in the world that's changing today so fast, if you focus on, like when things are changing too fast, focus on fundamentals. How to be a great leader, how to be a great partner, because I don't think there's a book on how to sell what's happening right now.
Great. What's your guilty pleasure when you're not working?
So I've never been much of a cook, but I just got a Blackstone, the flat top griddle, and I've been really into making smash burgers. That's now my guilty pleasure, both as my hobby and my cheat meal.
Thank you. I'll gladly accept the invite. I'll be around.
You're always welcome.
Taste one of those. Give me one word to describe the future of selling in an AI-driven industry.
Chaotic. It's never going to stop changing.
Right. Always evolving, chaotic. I like it. Absolutely. The last question on every single podcast that we have so far released is, what are the 3 skills and behaviors, the 3 qualities that top performers in the sales world need to possess to be top performers, in your opinion? The top 3 skills and behaviors that top elite salespeople need to execute and possess these days.
I think it's focus. So for us, focusing on the right accounts, but I think everyone needs to do that and not get distracted by something that can be maybe a quick win without the same impact. I think grit, being told no. If you're in a world where you need to get a lot of people on the same page, there's no way someone's not going to tell you no. If we look at some of the biggest deals we've had, we've been told no, but we know in our bones we can help you. And then the last thing is a level of humbleness, because there's just so much that has led us to be successful in our careers that's just not that relevant anymore. And you have to be able to let go that some of these things that made you successful are not going to make you successful anymore, and just be humble that we all need to keep learning. It's never going to stop.
It's never going to stop. Absolutely. I fully agree with you. Phil, you've been an amazing guest. We appreciate your time. I know that our listeners are enlightened by the tips and thought leadership that you have provided to them today. So thank you for your time.
Awesome. Harry, it's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
This was outstanding, my lovely people. What stood out to me really in this conversation is how, in a way, grounded this approach is. Continuous enablement, real-time learning, meeting sellers exactly where they are as the industry shifts around them. It's rare to hear somebody talk about complexity with, in a way, simplicity and clarity. And I think that's really what's needed. Thank you for bringing, again, this perspective to the show. If you like this episode and it sparked something new in you, share this with somebody else who you think might like to hear what Phil had to say today. You can find always more insights with some of the previous episodes. Go to the B2B Sales Trends.com. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, also on our YouTube channel. Until the next time, my lovely people, look after yourself, look after your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. Bye-bye.